My name is Emma, and for 8 long years I worked, saved, and sacrificed for one dream: to finally own my very own apartment. Not just any apartment, but the one I had imagined since I was a teenager. A place filled with sunlight, decorated with bookshelves, and smelling of fresh coffee every morning. The kind of place that made you feel like you had finally made it. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. And after years of waiting, pinching every penny, skipping vacations, and watching friends move ahead while I stayed behind, I finally got it. I signed those papers with trembling hands and tears in my eyes. I wasn't just buying an apartment. I was buying the proof that all my sleepless nights, double shifts, and sacrifices had actually been worth it. When I held the keys in my hand, I whispered to myself, "Emma, you did it. You really did it." The very first thought that came to my mind wasn't even about myself. It was about my family. You see, I come from a background where family means everything. Or at least I thought it did. Every celebration, every tiny victory, I had always dreamed of sharing it with them. And this was the biggest moment of my life. So I did what any proud daughter, sister, and niece would do. I planned a housewarming party. A beautiful gathering where my family could come together, eat, laugh, and walk through the place I had built with my sweat and tears. I picture my mom smiling proudly, my dad giving me one of those rare hugs he reserved for special occasions, and my siblings running around, claiming which corner would be theirs whenever they visited. I spent days preparing. I decorated with fairy lights, laid out fresh flowers, and even borrowed extra chairs so everyone would have a comfortable spot. I cooked for hours in my brand new kitchen, every dish chosen because I knew it was somebody's favorite. I wanted it to feel less like a party and more like a thank you note written in food, warmth, and laughter. I invited everyone: my parents, my 2 brothers, my cousins, even my aunt and uncle. And every single one of them promised they'd be there. The morning of the housewarming, I woke up before sunrise. The apartment smelled of cinnamon rolls baking in the oven, and the sunlight streamed in through the brand new curtains I had stayed up late hanging. I played soft music, set the dining table with my nicest dishes, and kept checking my phone to see if anyone was on their way. By noon, I was practically bursting with excitement. I kept glancing at the door, waiting for that knock, that ring of the bell. I had even prepared a little speech, something about how this home wasn't just mine, but ours, because every story I carried into these walls came from them. But then something strange happened. The clock struck 1, then 2, then 3, and the doorbell never rang. At first, I told myself it was traffic. Maybe someone got delayed. Maybe they decided to come together. Maybe they were planning a surprise entrance, something big like in the movies. My heart clung to hope because I couldn't imagine the alternative. But when my phone buzzed, it wasn't a text saying, "We're almost there." It was a message from my younger brother. "Hey, Emma. Sorry, we can't make it today. Something came up." My chest tightened, but I brushed it off. "Okay, fine. One person couldn't come. That's all right. The others would still show." Minutes later, another text. This time from my mom. "Sweetheart, I'm really sorry. Your dad isn't feeling well, and we decided to stay home. We'll visit some other time." I felt my throat closing, but I forced a smile. Family emergencies happen. They'll make it up to me later. But then came the third text. My cousin. "Hey, we're actually busy with some friends today. Sorry, we'll see your place soon though. Congrats." One by one, the excuses poured in. Some claimed they forgot. Others said they had errands. A few didn't even bother replying. By the time the sun set, I was still sitting in that perfectly decorated apartment alone. The food had gone cold, the candles melted down, and the only sound was the hum of the refrigerator in the background. That night, as I sat on the floor surrounded by untouched plates of food, tears streaming down my face, I realized something devastating. The very people I thought would be proudest of me didn't care at all. And in that moment, something inside me broke. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly imagine, was that their betrayal would light a fire in me. A fire that would burn brighter, hotter, and more dangerous than anything they had ever seen before. Because this wasn't just about a missed party. This was about years of me showing up for them, years of me putting their needs before mine, years of me begging for love and support I never got back. That night, I made a silent promise. If my family wanted to treat me like I didn't matter, then I would show them just how much I did. And that, my friends, is where my story truly begins. After that night, the silence in my brand new apartment felt heavier than the walls themselves. I should have been floating on air, celebrating the achievement of a lifetime. Instead, I was curled up on my couch, surrounded by leftovers, with swollen eyes from crying. But when morning came, something inside me had changed. The hurt was still there. It carved deep, jagged lines into my heart. But beneath that hurt was something else. Clarity. For years, I had ignored the small cracks in my family's behavior. The dismissive comments, the lack of support, the way they only called me when they needed something. I had always brushed it off, convincing myself, that's just how family is. They love me deep down. But now, their absence at the single most important moment of my life screamed louder than any excuse. Deep down, I knew the truth. They never celebrated me. They only tolerated me. I replayed memories in my head like a film reel. When I got my first job at a bookstore, I ran home excited, waving my little paycheck in my mom's face. She barely looked up from the TV. That's nice, Emma. Don't get too comfortable, though. You'll probably quit like you quit everything else. When I graduated college, I invited everyone to the ceremony. Only my roommate showed up. My family said they were too busy. And birthdays? Forget it. I can count on one hand the number of times they actually celebrated me. Most years, it was just another day. So why did I expect them to show up now? Because I thought maybe, just maybe, success would change things. That if I finally proved my worth, they'd finally see me. But I was wrong. And as that realization sank in, my sadness started to twist into something sharper. Something colder. I decided I wouldn't let their betrayal break me. I would let it fuel me. That week, I made a vow. If my family refused to support me, then fine. I would stop living for their approval. From that moment forward, everything I did would be for me. And not just for me, but to make sure they realized exactly what they lost when they pushed me away. So, I poured myself into building a life that didn't need them. I started with my apartment. Every evening after work, instead of waiting for someone to call or visit, I put my energy into turning that place into the home of my dreams. I painted the walls a soft cream color, hung shelves stacked with books, and framed little photos of places I wanted to visit: Paris, Tokyo, New York. The more beautiful the apartment became, the more it reminded me, Emma, you did this. Alone. And that's something no one can take from you. But I didn't stop there. At work, I doubled my efforts. I asked for extra projects, took on responsibilities others avoided, and stayed late nights. Slowly, my boss noticed. One Friday afternoon, he called me into his office. Emma, you've been killing it lately. How would you feel about leading the next campaign? That project turned into a promotion. And the promotion turned into a raise. Suddenly, the girl who had once been dismissed by her own family was standing at the head of meetings, making decisions that shaped the entire company. Meanwhile, my social life flourished. I joined a book club, started attending community events, and made new friends who actually showed up when they said they would. They celebrated me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. But here's the thing about family. Even when you try to move on, their shadow follows you. Every so often, my phone would buzz with a text from my mom. Hey, Emma, could you help us out with the bills this month? Or from my brother. Can you lend me some money? I'll pay you back soon. At first, I ignored them. But the more I succeeded, the bolder they became. They started dropping hints about visiting my apartment. Suddenly, the same people who couldn't take a few hours out of their day for my housewarming wanted to come see how I was doing. The first time my aunt called me, her voice was dripping with fake sweetness. Emma, darling, we heard you've been promoted. That's wonderful. We should get together sometime and celebrate as a family. I nearly laughed. Celebrate? Now you want to celebrate? Where were you when I sat in an empty apartment, waiting for you? But I didn't say that out loud. Not yet. Instead, I started to plan. If they thought they could use me only when it suited them, they had another thing coming. I wasn't going to be their afterthought anymore. I wasn't going to let them swoop into my life only when it was convenient.
No.
I was going to teach them what it felt like to be left out, to be invisible, to be betrayed. And I knew exactly how I was going to do it. The idea came to me one night while I was sitting in my glowing apartment, sipping wine, surrounded by friends who felt more like family than my blood ever did. We were laughing, celebrating my new raise, when it hit me. If my real family never valued me, then I would build my own. And when the time was right, I'd show my blood relatives what it felt like to watch from the outside. Because revenge doesn't always come in the form of screaming or fighting. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is showing the people who doubted you that you never needed them in the first place. But still, deep down, a darker part of me wanted more than just moving on. It wanted them to feel the same gut-wrenching pain they had given me. And so, the stage was set. They had abandoned me once. Now, it was my turn to decide just how much they would regret it. I wish I could tell you, I just let it go. That I moved on, surrounded myself with friends, and never looked back at the family who hurt me. But the truth is, the wound they left behind never healed. Every success I achieved, every milestone I crossed, it felt bittersweet because the people who were supposed to cheer me on weren't there. And every time they called me only when they needed something, that wound reopened. One night, my phone rang while I was working late. It was my mom. My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Emma," she said, her voice soft, almost pleading. "Your dad's car broke down. Could you help us out financially?"
Just a small loan.
My jaw clenched. A small loan. That was their language. They never said thank you, they never asked about me, they just reached out with open hands. "Sorry, Mom," I said firmly. "I can't." There was a long silence before she muttered, "You've changed." She was right. I had changed, but not in the way she thought. I hadn't become selfish. I had just finally learned to stop being their doormat. The calls didn't stop there. My brothers began texting me more frequently. My cousin even sent me a long message about how family is all we've got in the end, and that I should make more of an effort to stay connected. I almost laughed out loud when I read it. Where was that energy on my housewarming day? But as much as I wanted to ignore them completely, a part of me burned for something more. I didn't just want to cut them off. I wanted them to understand the weight of what they had done to me. I wanted them to feel the sting of rejection, the hollow ache of being left out. So I began to plan. The perfect opportunity arrived sooner than I expected. My company announced a major event, a celebration party for the employees who had helped land our biggest client of the year. And guess who was leading that project?
Me.
Not only was I going to be recognized in front of hundreds of people, but I would also be standing on stage, receiving an award. This was bigger than any graduation, any apartment, any housewarming party. It was the kind of moment families frame in photos and brag about for decades. And for once, I had the power to decide who would be there. So I did something bold. I sent out invitations to everyone in my family. My parents, my brothers, my cousins, my aunt, and uncle. I made it sound formal, exciting, like the kind of event they couldn't possibly miss. I knew exactly what I was doing. When the day finally arrived, I walked into that grand ballroom glowing with chandeliers and filled with the hum of voices. My coworkers were buzzing with excitement, and my name was already being whispered with admiration. I wore a sleek black dress, my hair done perfectly, confidence radiating from me. And sure enough, my family showed up. I spotted them instantly. My mom and dad stood awkwardly near the back, my cousins whispering among themselves, my brothers pretending like they belonged there. They looked around, wide-eyed, taking in the elegant venue, the polished people, the sense of importance in the air. For the first time in my life, I had the upper hand. The program began. Speeches, laughter, applause. My boss spoke about leadership, determination, and resilience. And then he said the words that made my chest tighten. "And now, please welcome the woman who led us to our biggest victory, Emma Davis." The room erupted into applause as I walked onto the stage. The spotlight hit me, and for a moment, I couldn't see anything but blinding light. But then, as my eyes adjusted, I found them, my family, staring at me. I began my speech. I stand here today, not just proud of what I've accomplished, but proud of the sacrifices it took to get here. 8 years ago, I was just a girl with a dream and no one to lean on. Every step of the way, I was told I wasn't enough. Every milestone I celebrated alone. But I kept going. And tonight, I stand here because I refuse to give up, even when the people I loved most gave up on me. My voice didn't crack. I didn't cry. I spoke with strength, with dignity, every word aimed directly at the faces of the people who had abandoned me. The audience cheered, but my family's faces told another story. My mom's lips were pressed into a thin line, my brothers shifted uncomfortably, my cousins avoided eye contact. They knew. When the applause died down, I stepped off the stage and was immediately surrounded by co-workers congratulating me. But from the corner of my eye, I saw my family inching toward me. "Emma," my mom started, her voice hesitant, "we're so proud of you. Really, we are." I turned to her, tilting my head slightly. "Funny, I don't remember seeing any of you when I bought my apartment, or at my graduation, or on my birthdays. But you're here now. Why is that?" Her face flushed red. She stammered something about being busy and not realizing how important it was. But I cut her off. "You knew. You just didn't care. And now that I've made something of myself, suddenly you show up. You don't get to call that love. You don't get to rewrite history." The air around us grew tense. My brothers shifted uncomfortably, my cousins whispered, but I didn't let them speak. For the first time in my life, I had the microphone, even without the stage. "You all left me sitting alone on the most important night of my life. And I will never forget that. Tonight, you can clap all you want, but don't ever mistake it for forgiveness." And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there, frozen, as the celebration carried on without them. In that moment, I felt powerful. For the first time, the roles had reversed. I wasn't the forgotten one anymore. They were. But little did I know, this confrontation was only the beginning. The real conflict was about to unfold. After that night, my family's mask started to slip. They couldn't hide their shame, but they also couldn't resist circling back into my life. The confrontation at the company gala had shaken them. Suddenly they saw me as someone powerful, someone worth attaching themselves to. And that only made me more determined to hold my ground. At first, they tried to play nice. My dad called me a week later, his voice unusually soft. "Emma, we didn't realize how much we'd hurt you. We want to make it right. Maybe you could invite us over sometime, show us your apartment properly?" I nearly laughed. Now, they wanted to see it? Months after leaving me alone with cold food and melted candles?
No.
They didn't want to see my apartment. They wanted a piece of my success. But I kept my composure. "I'm busy, Dad. Maybe some other time." The truth was I had something else in mind. You see, revenge doesn't always happen in one explosion. Sometimes it's slow, deliberate, like turning a knife inch by inch. I wanted my family to feel exactly what I had felt, left out, invisible, unwanted. And the perfect chance came when I decided to throw another party. This time, it wasn't a housewarming. It was a celebration of me. I called it my second chance party. My friends thought it was just a playful name, a way to mark my second big promotion, my second year in the apartment, and my second chance at happiness after years of struggle. But for me, it was more than that. It was a stage for my revenge. I decorated every corner with lights, flowers, and framed photos, not of my family, but of my achievements. My degree, my first paycheck, a snapshot of me standing on stage with my award. Proof that everything I'd done, I had done without them. The guest list included coworkers, neighbors, book club friends, basically everyone who had shown up for me when my own family hadn't. The energy was warm, real, full of laughter. And then, just when the party was in full swing, I heard the doorbell. I knew who it was before I even looked. My family. They walked in dressed nicely, trying to blend in, smiling as if they belonged. My mom carried a cake. My dad clapped me on the shoulder like nothing had ever happened. My brothers tried to joke around. For a second, the old Emma, the people pleaser, almost caved. Almost let them slide back into my life. But then I remembered the ache of sitting alone on that housewarming night, staring at untouched food while my phone lit up with excuses. And my spine straightened. I greeted them politely, but I didn't fawn over them. Instead, I turned my attention back to my guests, introducing everyone else, laughing loudly, keeping my family on the edges of the room. They weren't the stars of this show. I was. As the night went on, I could see the unease growing on their faces. They weren't used to being background characters in my story. They were used to being at the center, with me orbiting around them, begging for scraps of attention.
But now?
They were just outsiders looking in. The moment of truth came when it was time for speeches. My friends clinked their glasses, urging me to say a few words. I stood up holding my wine, scanning the room, and then, deliberately, my gaze landed on my family. I want to thank everyone here, I began, my voice steady, because you all showed me what true support looks like. You were there when I needed encouragement, when I needed company, when I needed love. You never made me feel invisible, and that's something I'll never take for granted. My family shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting anywhere but me. But I wasn't finished. You know, I continued, when I first bought this apartment, I thought family meant blood. I thought they'd be the first to show up for me. But that night, I learned something important. Family isn't about blood. Family is about who actually shows up. And looking around this room tonight, I see my real family. The applause from my guests thundered, filling the room. But my eyes stayed locked on my family, watching as the weight of my words sank in. My mom's face went pale. My dad cleared his throat. My brothers suddenly found the floor fascinating. For once, I wasn't begging for their approval. I wasn't craving their validation. I was holding the mirror up, forcing them to see themselves the way I had seen them for years. The rest of the night, they tried to salvage their dignity. My aunt attempted small talk. My cousin complimented my apartment. My dad muttered something about being proud. But their words rang hollow. They knew they couldn't erase what they had done. And here's the thing, revenge doesn't always need screaming matches or slammed doors. Sometimes the most powerful revenge is grace. Smiling at the people who broke you, showing them you're thriving without them, and refusing to let them rewrite the story. When they finally left that night, I closed the door behind them and leaned against it, my chest rising with satisfaction. They had come expecting a warm welcome, maybe even forgiveness. Instead, they left knowing the truth. Their betrayal had defined the rest of our relationship. And no matter how hard they tried, they could never undo that moment. But deep inside, a question still lingered. Was this enough? Had I truly made them feel what I felt? Or was there still one more step left in my revenge? That question haunted me for weeks, until life handed me one final opportunity. And that's when everything came to a head. In the weeks after my second chance party, the shift in my family's behavior was impossible to ignore. For the first time, they weren't the ones holding the power over me, I was. They tiptoed around me, reaching out with carefully worded texts and overly polite phone calls. But here's the thing. Once you see someone's true colors, you can't unsee them. No matter how many fake smiles or sweet words they sent my way, I remembered the sting of sitting in my apartment alone on the biggest night of my life. I remembered the tears, the cold food, the silence. And though I had taken my revenge by showing them what real family looks like, I still hadn't given them the full weight of accountability. They thought they could smooth things over, pretend like nothing had happened, and slide back into my life. But I wasn't going to let them. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. My company was expanding, and I was chosen to represent us at a major industry conference in New York City. It was the kind of event that made headlines, networking, media coverage, interviews. A once-in-a-lifetime spotlight. When I posted about it online, the comments poured in. Friends congratulated me. Coworkers cheered me on. And then, like clockwork, my family appeared in the comments too. "So proud of you, Emma. That's our girl." You're making the family name shine. I stared at those words, my stomach turning. The family name? What had they ever done to help me carry it? They hadn't lifted a finger, yet here they were, trying to ride the wave of my success. And that's when I knew how I wanted to end this story. Not with bitterness, not with screaming, but with the ultimate act of clarity. So, after the conference, when the company hosted a big celebratory dinner in my honor, I extended invitations again. Yes, to my family too. But this time, I planned to leave no room for misunderstanding. The dinner was held at a high-end restaurant overlooking the city skyline. The tables sparkled with crystal glasses and golden cutlery, the kind of elegance that made everyone sit a little straighter. My family arrived dressed their best, trying to blend in with a polished crowd. My mom wore pearls, my dad a stiff suit, my cousins flashy dresses. They smiled too wide, laughed too loud, pretending like they belonged there. But this wasn't their stage. It was mine. As dessert was served, my boss raised a toast to me, praising my leadership and determination. Glasses clinked, cheers filled the room. And then, once again, all eyes turned to me. I stood, letting the weight of the moment settle. "Thank you," I began, my voice calm but strong. "This has been the journey of a lifetime, and I want to take a moment to acknowledge something important." I paused, scanning the room. My gaze landed on my family, who were smiling nervously, clearly expecting to be thanked. But instead, I continued. When I started this journey, I thought success would mean nothing unless I could share it with the people I loved most. I thought family was the foundation of everything. But along the way, I learned something different. Sometimes the people you call family are the very ones who don't show up when it matters. And sometimes the ones who stand by you are the people you least expect. The room was silent. I saw my mom shift uncomfortably, my dad frown, my cousins lower their eyes. I kept going. 8 years ago, I worked and saved for my dream apartment. I planned a housewarming party and invited everyone I loved. But that night, no one came. I sat alone in a room filled with food, decorations, and hope, and I realized I meant less to my own family than I ever imagined. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My coworkers looked shocked, my friends glanced at me with sympathy, and my family's faces turned white. "But here's the twist," I said, lifting my chin. "That betrayal didn't break me. It built me. It taught me that real family isn't blood, it's the people who show up. And tonight, looking around this room, I see my real family. My friends, my colleagues, my mentors. You are the ones who stood beside me, who celebrated me, who never let me feel invisible." The applause that followed shook the walls. My friends cheered, my boss clapped, strangers even stood to honor me. But my family? They sat frozen, humiliated, unable to escape the truth I had just laid bare. I ended with one final line. "To those who abandoned me, thank you. Because without your betrayal, I never would have found the strength to stand here tonight." The room erupted again, and I sat down, my heart pounding, not with nerves, but with triumph. That night, my family slipped out quietly, their heads low, their pride shattered. They never spoke of it again. And from that moment forward, the balance of power had shifted forever. They knew they couldn't use me, couldn't ignore me, couldn't claim me when it suited them. I had drawn the line, once and for all. In the weeks that followed, something amazing happened. The ache I carried for years, the desperate need for their love, began to fade. For the first time, I felt whole without them. My apartment didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full. Full of my laughter, my achievements, my chosen family. And I realized, revenge isn't always about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about setting yourself free. Sometimes it's about proving that you can thrive without the people who tried to hold you back. So yes, I took my revenge. But more importantly, I found my peace. And as I sit here now, sipping coffee in my dream apartment, looking at the sunrise through my window, I whisper the same words I said when I first held those keys. "Emma, you did it. You really did it." Only this time, I don't need anyone else to believe it. Because I believe it myself. Thank you so much for watching Emma's story. Broken Heart Sparkles. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to hit the like button to show your support and subscribe to the channel for more powerful stories like this one. Lightbulb. And remember, sometimes the people who betray you are the ones who teach you how strong you really are. Flex biceps. See you in the next story.